Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Dawn Ennis, and I am a transgender woman. As of May, it's 8 years since I came out. I live in Connecticut. I'm 57 years old, and I am a single mom raising 3 kids, 2 in college, 1 in high school, and I am a journalist. That's pretty much what I'm looking to hear from all y'all. If you could just say your name, say where you are, and if that's not where you're from originally, you can say where you're from originally. If you would give us permission to use your age, please do so. If you don't want to say your age, you don't have to. One person I interviewed said, I am older than my teeth, but younger than my gums. You can answer that question any way you want. And I'd like to know how you'd like to identify yourself as far as what makes you you. I'm a journalist. I'm a mom. I am a Mets fan. I often say that being trans is like the 5th most interesting thing about me. So I'm going to start with probably the most famous person in the room. Me, no, just kidding. Mack Beggs. Mack, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Mack Beggs, and I am a trans man, a trans athlete, student athlete. I go to Life University. I'm almost graduating this year, so hopefully just a year left. So excited. I'm originally from Texas, but currently I'm staying in Alabama right now. I have 2 fur babies and a girlfriend I'm staying with, just living life, fighting for trans rights and helping the community as best I can and advocate. So yeah, hi everybody. I go by he, him pronouns.
Oh yes, and thank you, Mack, for reminding everyone. Let's use our pronouns. I am she, her, hers. Katy reminded me that today, 6 years ago, it was not only my first Pride, but it was the day we met at LA Pride. And this person kept asking me all these questions about being trans. How did you come out? What's it like being trans? What's the whole process of knowing that you're trans? And then was it a month later, Katy? I got an email or a Facebook message saying, thank you. You helped me understand, and I've come out as myself. So happy anniversary, Katy.
Thank you. Would you like me to go next? Yeah?
No, we're done with you. Goodbye. No. Yes, please. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. I've given everyone a brief introduction, but there's a lot more to your story than that.
Okay. I'm Katy Michaels. I am a child abuse, child protective services social worker. I am 49 years young. I turned 50 in 4 weeks, July 6th. I have no shame about my age. I'm grateful. I feel blessed. I used to work for the Los Angeles LGBT Center for 3 years, helping trans and non-binary people and cisgendered people, but primarily working as a trans health coordinator or medical social worker. That was one of my toughest jobs. It was when our last president was elected, and that was really tough. So I've been physically transitioning since, or I guess I could say my first day on the job as Katy was December 7th, as my gay friends would say, Pearl Harbor Day. I got my pearls that day, which sounds so ridiculous. But anyways, December 7th, 2015. Yes, June 9th was an amazing moment because I don't know if Dawn remembers this, but the thing she said, which turned on the light, I was a little upset about was, it's not who you go to bed with, it's who you go to bed as. And I was trying to stuff any kind of awareness about that until that moment. I still was trying to stuff it, but it wasn't possible. The thing that's different about me, I would say, is that I have what's called Klinefelter syndrome, which means cisgendered women are born XX, cisgendered men are born XY. I was born XXY, and that opened the Pandora's box. But I got, sadly, in LA at Cedars, homophobia and transphobia, where the doctor would not give me estrogen. He only wanted to give me testosterone, which in a way now was a gift, because I know I can't, when I took that for 9 months, I hated it. And the minute I took estrogen, that was all I needed to know. So I'm a Boston sports fan because that's where we're from. It's in the blood. I don't know what else to tell you all. I have 2 fur babies too. I'm single, and that's kind of challenging being single as a trans woman, but it is what it is. And I've never been happier. So I'm gonna let others talk. Thanks so much, Dawn.
Thank you, Katie. No, it's all true. And I was on testosterone for 5 years and it was horrible. But I did it because I wanted to make myself into a man and prove to myself and my wife that I wasn't really trans. I was in complete denial and it screwed me up. And my body did something that it still boggles my mind. It converted the estrogen, converted the testosterone to estrogen. So it's basically like pouring oil into a fire. I got bigger boobs and it was basically just, it backfired on me. So I'm glad you found your true self. All right, let's go to Michelle. Michelle, can you please tell us about yourself? Where'd you go? Did we just lose her? She was there a second ago. Okay, I'm gonna skip Michelle. I'm sorry, I hope she comes back. Naiyah, would you please introduce yourself? Actually, wait, sorry, Naiyah. Michelle, you're back. Can you hear us? We lost you for a second. Don't forget to unmute.
Yes, I'm sorry, having spotty internet.
Oh, it's okay. Well, let's get it in. Tell us about yourself, where you're from, where you're originally from, your age, if you want to tell us, and how do we identify you, your pronouns, all that stuff.
Sure. My name is Michelle Anderson. I am a trans woman of color. I am originally from Mississippi, a red state, and I moved to Memphis, Tennessee, a red state. Um, but to be more active in being an HIV advocate. I am currently working with a coalition to decriminalize HIV. And I also am a trans advocate as well. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I am an avid Barbie collector. So that's something unique about me.
Do you have something you can show us that in your hand?
Well, I actually don't have one right now because I had to put them in storage because I had so many. so so I had to put them in storage, but I do have well, no, I don't. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
don't have
How
it
did
at
how
the
did you
moment.
get into that? How
But
did that happen?
well, actually I got into Barbies because I really pictured myself as a young individual. I was like, this is the type of lady that I would like to become. So I really got um, into collecting probably around 2007 because I had a few, and since then it's just taken off. So yes,
That's awesome.
I'm excited for being here and meeting everyone.
I'm so glad you are too. G.I. Joe took a lot of rides in Barbie's Malibu Jeep and stayed a lot of times in Barbie's townhouse. And my sister was constantly complaining to our mother that Barbie's stuff ended up in my room somehow. So
Me too. Me too.
Naiyah, please tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and all that stuff.
Yeah, I will. Is the fan too loud, or can you hear it?
I can't even hear it.
Okay, good. I'm Naiyah McGlamery. I'm from Hartford, Connecticut. I'm a 16-year-old non-binary and lesbian high school dropout. I'll be going to early college next year though. So that's exciting. I literally found out that I got accepted like a week after you interviewed me the first time, Dawn. So that was kind of like, oh dang, if only this had happened then. But yeah, I'm the youth programming coordinator at Kimura's Cultural Corner in Hartford. Dawn, you obviously know Kimura.
Maybe you should tell everyone else about what that cultural center is about.
Yeah, so Kimura's Cultural Corner is basically a space where, well, it's a lot. Kimura's Cultural Corner is a lot of things, but before anything else, it's Black, queer, and Afrocentric, and promotes cultural humility through various means, including after this is the community conversation, which tonight will be about what freedom means. So we just built a labyrinth in the north end of Hartford that I was just at. That's why I was a little late. And yeah.
My best friend, my BFF, Maia Monet, who is a YouTube personality, and she is a photographer and a writer, And I'm not going to say any more, let you tell the rest, but I had to make sure I told all those things in case you didn't, Maia. Go ahead.
Oh, well, yeah, thanks for stealing my thunder there, Dawn.
More
But
screen
yes.
time for me.
My name is Maia Monet. I have she, her, and ella pronouns, as I like to say. I identify as, well, I am Latinx, and the child of an undocumented immigrant from Colombia. As Dawn was saying, I am a professional writer, YouTuber, and singer, and photographer. I also am originally from New York City, where I was born. I was also raised on Long Island, not too far away from where Dawn actually was also raised. And I currently live in Orlando, although in this very second I am in Houston, attending my son's high school graduation. That just happened a little earlier today. And this is actually where I came out as a transgender person and came to the realization I was trans, and as well as lesbian. Currently in Orlando, I actually serve as the social media coordinator and website coordinator for One Orlando Alliance, which is an umbrella organization that was created in the wake of Pulse. It basically combined all the nonprofits in town, all the LGBTQ nonprofits, to help coordinate the efforts after Pulse, and it grew into a larger organization. As you may or may not realize, Saturday is actually the 5th remembrance of Pulse. So that's a big deal that's going on here in Orlando. And I'm also on the steering committee for the National Trans Visibility March, which, if you haven't heard, is actually going to happen in Orlando, Florida this year. So come and visit me. You're gonna have a great time, I promise, because we're also combining it with our Pride, which we happen to have in October here in Orlando. So I am actually the comms director for Come Out with Pride. And I wear a lot of nonprofit hats, I guess you could say. Yeah, that's me.
Maia, something that happened to you in the last year, I think it was a year, you came out as asexual.
Yeah. That was an interesting discovery. You know, it's like I keep finding little new facets of myself, and I just thought everybody else kind of felt like I did about sex, which is not all that excited about it. It's kind of funny because, as Don knows, one of my jobs as a photographer is to photograph a lesbian burlesque troupe here in town. And my best friend is an absolutely gorgeous woman named Ivy Les Vixens. That's her stage name. And so I'm constantly around absolutely unbelievably gorgeous women who are in various states of undress. And I'm kind of like, meh. Even though I identify as a lesbian, I am emotionally attracted to women, I guess is the best way to put it. But sex is like really far down my list of priorities.
Thank you, Maia. We're going to proceed with the group we have, which I'm really excited all of you to meet y'all. It's funny, the different connections I have. I met Mack when they were promoting the film that is now on Hulu, Changing the Game, in 2019. It's now on Hulu. I met Naiyah through an article for Connecticut Voice. I met Maia because we both worked for Disney. I at ABC and she at Walt Disney World. I met Michelle through Kayla, and I'm very excited to reconnect with Katy. This is probably the first time you and I have actually spoken since 2015, Katy. So I'm gonna start with you, Katy, if you don't mind. What was your reaction when you started seeing all these articles, all these items in the news about anti-transgender bills? How did that affect you in terms of, I know you're not an athlete, but you are transgender and you're out. And what was it like to have to see that in the news?
So I will say also that what I didn't share earlier is that I live in Southern California. And so with that being said, I'm most bothered by Caitlyn Jenner, who I know, who I try to have compassion for, but I feel very angry towards, because I feel like she's a traitor for a few reasons, and I hope I don't offend anyone here, but we're probably on the same team. I just don't understand.
We're all on the same team.
Okay, I just don't understand how someone who's trans could identify as a Republican, but I also know I have a brother who's gay and he's a Trumper. So, I mean, it's possible. So, yeah, I just don't understand. And so my biggest thing is with her, it's not really the whole topic of that you brought up. It's just more with her. And then her trying to get rid of our governor with the recall, which is ridiculous. It's not going to happen. But so to be honest with you, I don't feel that affected. And the reason is because of where I live. I feel very safe. I don't think, I realize I have a privilege, and what that privilege is that I passed. I don't like that language, but I don't really know what else to use. I feel very privileged, so I don't feel threatened. But I will say right after the election, the 2016 election, I felt terrified. I don't have that fear anymore because obviously there's a new president, but I feel respected and well regarded in my profession and where I live. And I don't really have to handle much prejudice. The only place that it really comes up is in my attempts to date, and that's the challenge, I'd say. But yeah, I don't really have a lot about that specific topic. I just think it's we have a lot of areas we need to grow in, and it's up to us to make sure that we don't go backwards.
I hear you. Someone who's actually been in the headlines because of anti-trans legislators and things is Mack. Max, you're an activist now, trying to get these lawmakers to see the light. What has been your most successful message? You quoted something from Dr. Seuss, I believe.
Yeah, we are here. We are here. I mean, I just
Here's a
don't.
who.
Yeah, I just don't understand why. I mean, after all the love and acceptance that is being shown everywhere, I don't understand why these legislators and lawmakers are still trying to find a loophole somehow to attack the community. It's really upsetting, and especially with celebrities. Like, I completely agree with you, Katy, that I think Caitlyn Jenner just has no business with like saying anything about the trans community. Like, if she's not going to say anything like that's going to help progress our community, then she shouldn't really be saying anything at all. It's affecting a lot more people on a mass level than just her words just being something.
Can you tell me how it's affected you personally, Mac, in terms of reading about these laws? And you went to school in Georgia. It's one of those states where there's activity anti-trans.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess what's good about, I guess on the college level, I mean, even though like if would still be affected, I feel like the staff that I had and the resources that I had and the people that were had so much love and acceptance on my team, especially with Coach O, I feel like if I were to be affected, I have the privilege, and I wish, just like Katy, I wish I didn't have to say that I passed well and that I'm privileged enough to be put in fortunate positions where I can compete. And I just don't want that to happen to anybody else who does not have that privilege. And so I'm using my voice in order to help with that progression.
Have you gotten used to having male privilege?
No, I still hide. I mean, I guess I'm used to it just in the sense because I ignore it, but in the fact that since I still in that state of mind of like, I still am fearful whether or not if I pass well or not, because someone could just is very curious by just like, I don't know, like the people watch, like, and maybe the slightest movement of like somebody being like, oh well, you're not really acting like a guy. Well, little do you know.
Michelle, you have the extra intersectional ability of having to struggle with the fact that you're a Black woman, and there's not a more marginalized group on the planet of trans people than Black trans women. And I was wondering, what's it been like in terms of your experience? What have you struggled with or overcome as these laws have been passed all over the place? And you're in Tennessee, I believe, is that right?
Yes.
So one of those, it's one of the states of hate.
Yeah. So right now, like they're about to sign in a law to where that the businesses would have to post signs saying that they allow trans people to use the restroom. So saying that it's a trans inclusive restroom, which I believe that puts more of a target on the trans community, because if I only can go to a place where I can use the bathroom that says trans only, then that's really marginalizing, a part of the community, and that's setting us up for more discrimination and things like that. And it's kind of difficult because we just want to live. We just want to just blend in and just be normal. But most of the lawmakers now they're pushing a lot of anti-trans bills here in Tennessee, especially. And also, like I said, in Mississippi, like my family stays in Mississippi. So if I visit Mississippi, according to their law, I have to use the bathroom assigned to me at birth, which causes complications because I can't go into a men's restroom, and just feel comfortable in any kind of way.
So what do you do, Michelle? Do you hold it? Do you go in the ladies' room and take a risk?
I do. I honestly do, because I just feel as though, hey, I'm using the restroom. I'm not going in there because most people in Mississippi think that from seeing movies and other things on TV in the past, that trans people are pedophiles and that they're only out to get kids and molesters and things like that. And that's very discouraging, being that being a Black woman, being a Black trans woman, then being in the South, that's more of a fight every day.
Naiyah, you had a fight at your high school, even here in Blue State, Connecticut, and it had nothing to do with the laws, but it had everything to do with being different. Tell everyone a little bit about your struggle at school.
Yeah, well, in the way it had nothing to do with the laws, it was really that the laws that we do have were being broken. And I think that just goes to show that legislation can, it can be written there, but you have to follow it still, like, or else it doesn't really matter. Like, that's why I feel like the push needs to be more for like actual trans liberation, not just, not like, we can't end once the Equality Act gets passed or anything like that. So at my high school, there was a general resistance to using people's pronouns for trans people in general, but especially non-binary trans people, because it was, I guess they had just seen more binary trans people before. I don't know, but they the kid, there was one, well, at least that, who was out trans person who was within the binary, and they dead named him on a video that was posted to YouTube of like basically like so there's like two separate programs in the high school for the first 2 years and the second 2 years, and they have like a little inauguration thing at the beginning of each program. And for that video, since it was COVID, they did a video instead of the actual thing in person, and they dead named him on it, even though they used a post-transition photo, so it was clearly on purpose, because there would have been no way to mistake that. For me, there was a general refusal to use my pronouns, except for in front of my parents, really, because I think they knew that that wouldn't be okay with them. Because my parents are like the most supportive parents, and they would not have enjoyed seeing that from the school. But there were many instances where like teachers would, like, there was one instance where a teacher was like, well, are you sure, because you wear makeup and sometimes, and you have long hair, so I would assume that your pronouns are she, her. And I was like, but they're not though. Like, yeah. And there was like, it was crazy. This is like thinking back on it, like there was so much stuff.
Is that why you decided to drop out?
That was, yeah, a lot of the reason. A lot of my identities and my activism was weaponized against me in order to, basically try to get me out of the school in a way that was like, basically they played into the like queerness and transness is a mental illness type of thing, and were like gonna send me to a clinical school over it. And I was like, this is definitely not what I need. My parents agreed it was what I needed. A lawyer agreed it wasn't what I needed. My parents agreed it wasn't what I needed. And so I just dropped out because like I was not about to go to a clinical school.
Right.
And honestly, dropping out was the best decision I've ever made. Like,
And you can get your GED, right? You'll get your degree. So
I'm not getting my GED. I'm just going to early college. So
okay, all right, that works. Maia, you've been protesting the governor of Florida, who on the first day of Pride signed the latest trans ban. Tell us a little bit about what Florida's like in terms of, and Texas in terms of what you've seen. Maia just tweeted a picture, and she shared it with me on text, of a trans flag and an LGBT pride flag outside a house not far from where she's staying.
Yeah, the neighborhood I was living in at the time when I came out as trans is a pretty affluent one here in Houston, Texas. It's called Sienna Plantation, and it's as conservative as probably you can get. So by my son's house, I noticed there was now a house which had the rainbow flag and a trans flag out in front. And I found that quite shocking, because the neighborhood is enormous. It's tens of thousands of homes, and it's the only one I saw that way. So it gave me a little bit of hope. Houston itself is kind of strange in that the city proper itself is very liberal. In fact, they once elected an out lesbian mayor, but the suburbs all around it are very, very dead red. Orlando has a similar situation in that the city, although I would say a larger percentage of the of the area around the city is pretty liberal. It's a blue dot in a red state. Actually, that blue dot runs all the way to St. Pete on the coast, so it's more like a blue strip. And so as long as you're in Orlando, you could be mistaken for thinking that you're actually in a blue state. It's very, very blue. It's also very, very gay. I don't think people appreciate exactly how gay Orlando is. It's super gay, and I don't know if it's because of our amusement parks and all the entertainers we have in town, but we've had gay clubs and institutions going back decades. I've worked for one of the gay clubs in town called Southern Nights, and we have a party there called Girl to Party. It's the latest iteration of a lesbian party that's been going on for 40 years on Saturday nights. So it's tremendous. But we do have a Republican governor. I want to say other words, but I'm holding back.
You can use any words you want. If anybody wants to cuss, there's no bar on that today.
His nickname in town by those of us who dislike him, or at least in the state, is Death Santis, because of how he handled COVID. And I just gotten back from Pensacola Unleashed, which is a big gay event that happens in Pensacola every year. And that day I got back, I found out that, of course, that he had just signed the bill, the anti-trans youth sports bill, on June 1st, which, beginning of Pride Month, I mean, like it couldn't have been. It couldn't have
Punching
been.
down.
Yeah, it could not have been a mistake. And then he followed that up by the next day by basically cutting out two large cash appropriations to nonprofits in Orlando that basically treated Pulse survivors for trauma and things like that, which he got tons of bad press for, and his press secretary was saying it's unfair. But I mean, like that's what you did. We have an organization in town called Zebra Coalition, and it basically is for LGBTQ youth, and they had just decided to buy a large defunct hotel and turn it into transitional housing for LGBTQ youth, but they were relying on the $750,000 grant from the state to do it, and that's the funding that that DeSantis decided to cut out, as well as another 150,000 for another center, part of our LGBTQ center. We have a trauma center in there that basically deals with a lot of, trauma victims of Pulse. And I myself rely on some of that funding myself for my own therapy. So yeah, at least that got him bad press.
Yeah.
So he did that on consecutive days in June. I where I live, I very much enjoy. I very much enjoy living in Orlando. I love Orlando, in fact. But you can't just venture too far outside of Orlando before you're into some pretty hostile territory, both racially and LGBTQ wise. So,
Wow. You mentioned COVID-19. I'd like to ask everybody, starting with you, Maia, what was the trans intersection with COVID-19? Did the pandemic in any way impact either dysphoria or your individuality, in terms of, we're very social beings. We want to be seen and acknowledged and validated. And we were all just told to stay at home and lock down. What was the pandemic like for you as a trans woman, Maia?
I'm of the same vintage as Katy. I just turned 50 in February. And much like her, I've had difficulty dating. So being forced to stay at home wasn't exactly conducive to meeting people and going on dates for sure, or anything like that. So it was just me and my dog for quite a long time. And as it is, I also already suffer from depression, and it did not help that situation at all. So it was very, very difficult. I did have a small group of people that once things started loosening up, I started seeing more regularly, especially as I've gotten vaccinated. But yeah, for quite long stretches of time, the only relationship I had really was with my Uber Eats driver and DoorDash guy and all those folks. So yeah, I gained my COVID weight. But besides that, yeah, it was a lot of lonely times. As you know, my best friend Dev, I couldn't see him at all because he's in his 60s, and he was very, very worried about catching COVID with his pre-existing conditions. And so it's only now that I've been able to get out. I've been able to sing, which for me is a lifeline to sanity. So things are looking much better now, but there were some dark days in there where I was really not in a good place.
So true. Katy, you got a shout out there. Tell us your pandemic transgender intersection. How was the pandemic being a trans woman in Southern California?
I think because of the work I do, wasn't affected the same way. And what I mean is that I worked the entire time. I have a mask here because it's required in my office to work. But when we go into people's homes, which I continued to do throughout the COVID, we wore this and well, we don't have to wear this, but I do, N95 and a screen and
a face shield.
Yeah, that's face shield. Yeah. So I think because of my job, I haven't felt so isolated. Really, I haven't shared this. Well, it hasn't come up, but I'm sober 23 plus years from drugs and alcohol and some other things that I struggle with. Thank you. I happen to luckily I've actually lost some weight, but it's because I have a food program that's pretty strict. I don't eat flour and sugar. I just mention those things because I'm also very lucky in that I have resources that many people don't have with Zoom and 12-step meetings, and really took the time this year to work harder on myself. Not that I don't do that already, but it was just another opportunity to go deeper. I'll just say why in this moment it's coming up, but I think hearing Maia talk about Northern Florida kind of has brought it up, but one of the challenges of my coming out has been my family's response. And my mother and brother, the brother who's gay and my mother, they moved to Deltona, which is Northern Florida. Mm-hmm. And my other brother, who I haven't spoken to since September of 2015, since I came out, and his wife live in Lake Mary and with their 4 children. And the girls, who are 5, have met me, but the boys who are 10 and 13, I'm not allowed to see because my brother is not comfortable with my transitioning. And so I guess bring that up because I heard about Northern Florida, and I have spent time there too. But this was before I transitioned. I lived for a summer, which sounds funny, in Southern Florida. And I love Southern Florida, but Northern Florida, I don't think so. I don't even care for Orlando, no offense. But I just know it's just so not the place I want to be. And I just feel safe here in Southern California. I don't feel
Well, your brother
so
must
safe
have heard that his sons could catch the trans from you, right? It's contagious.
I don't
apparently.
even think it's that. I really don't think it's that. I think he's just ignorant. And I also think, I don't know about other people on this group, but there's alcoholism in my family and it's affected my family members. And their way of handling or not handling things is just to cut people out. And so I'm one of those people that was cut out. And so I just hope and pray that changes. And hopefully it will. But COVID really hasn't affected. Thank you. COVID hasn't really affected me that much. I mean, though I will say, and I'll just say this last thing is, sadly, I lost somebody I work with who was also from, I don't know if I said this real well, but I'm from Massachusetts. I actually know, Maia, where you live because I went to UMass Amherst for undergrad. Hartford was a place I felt a lot of sadness as an 18-year-old because I saw a lot of homelessness there, and it was a difficult place at that time. And now LA, I left there because of the homelessness, partly because I couldn't tolerate it right before COVID. Anyways, to wrap this up, I don't know where I got off there, but
don't worry about it.
I just and know that I'm grateful for what I have. And I know. So my girlfriend that I worked with, who's from Massachusetts, she died of COVID. I had 2 girlfriends that died within 5 weeks, and sadly, their underlying condition was they were obese, and they were both social workers. So it affected me that way. But as far as socially, I don't feel I was that affected. But I know that I'm a privileged person in that way too.
Well, you answered a question that's coming up about trans phobia, so we'll also file that for this. Michelle, can you tell us a little bit about your pandemic experience in Tennessee? Was it harder because you're trans? Was it different?
It was harder because being trans, like you said before, we need that validation. And I work in social work as a linkage to care person for newly diagnosed individuals. So I had a few trans women on my caseload, and we were just so used to seeing each other and giving that validation to each other. And when it came down to where now either we can call each other on Zoom. Some people don't like using Zoom, call each other on the phone. And it wasn't the same. And also it kind of brought up a lot of trauma that I was experiencing. I spoke with my therapist about this. Just a lot of trauma from the past had been brought up, being in isolation because you don't have, just not having anyone to reach out and touch or give a hug or anything like that. So it brought up a lot of trauma. And then like being here in Tennessee, the COVID rate was very high, and we were just trying to, well, I know for me, just trying to just live an everyday life in lockdown was not what I was used to. So but it did drive me to being able to get a therapist. So I was able to get a therapist and get into do and work on my mental health because we really got affected. Yeah.
Good for you. That's very important. Mental health stigma is a real problem in our country. So I know a little bit about the experiences that both Naiyah and Mack go through because I'm old and I have 2 college-age kids and I have a high schooler. So Mack, why don't you go first? Tell us about the pandemic at Life University, and was it different than what you expected? Did it impact you in any way because of your transness?
I don't think it did. I think it honestly, actually, I think the pandemic helped me in a sense. It was really, I was going through a really hard time with just like all the media just all up in my face, and then like all these anti-trans bills like were popping up right before everything happened, and just being able to kind of really focus on myself and really figure out the things I need to do for myself as an individual. It gave me time to really think, do the things that I enjoy and love. I'm able to really kind of put myself in a place that not many others can really get the opportunity to, I guess, because with being a college student, you kind of have a lot of free like time, and but also you got to study too. So just really finding like that balance and like getting on a time schedule. I guess just really growing up out of the high school dilemma, and so I really just kind of developed as a an adult, and really have found myself and my truest of what I want to follow in life. And yeah, it's really all that's been happening, and I really like the pandemic. I mean, besides people like getting sick and everything, but
Except
it's
for those
really
people dying,
nice.
it's pretty good, right?
I mean, it's been really rejuvenating.
Uh-huh. Rejuvenating is a word.
Yeah.
But
Well, I was
how did
like,
you switch from wrestling to MMA?
yeah. Also that I just
Like,
feel like I
wow.
need to take a I feel like I just need to take a more professional route in life now. I feel like I have a lot on my plate right now, and with wrestling, and it was taking a lot out of my time, and I just didn't have the time in order to pour into that particular thing. And I just feel like training on my own and having a schedule where it's not set like other freshmen and sophomores need to have it. I just think that a more flexible schedule is what I need now. And so I'm just trying to get into a really good dojo down in Georgia, so I can have the training partners that I need. I know I wrestle and I perform at a high caliber, so I need that type of environment rather than just some regular dojo that people are trying to learn. Like,
Understood. You're a highly skilled athlete, that's for sure. Let me switch over to Naiyah, and I'm going to come back to you, Mack, to talk about transphobia. But Naiyah, was the pandemic a boon like it was for Mack, or was it harder because of your high school experience and your homeschool experience?
Well, for me, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was in the hospital for like mental health reasons, and then I got COVID, and then I was in the hospital for mental health reasons while I had COVID. So I was
Wow.
completely locked in a room by myself for 2 weeks in the hospital without being able to see my family except for like maybe an hour a day on FaceTime. So that's and yeah, the beginning of the pandemic was really difficult for me, but the pandemic is what made me realize that I always knew that I was like not straight, but the pandemic made me realize that what the label for that was, which is lesbian, and then that made me be able to recognize my non-binary identity. So like I guess just like having a lot of time alone like with myself to like really think about like who I am and like how that's different from how I'm perceived or how I've been socialized, was definitely like the good that came out of the bad in the pandemic.
do you feel
That's-
like there's a lot of weight off your shoulders? Like,
sure.
just you breathe?
For sure, yes. And similarly to Katy, I'm not an addict in that sense, but I did used to self-harm compulsively, and I just reached 100 days clean like 3 days ago. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
How is your mental health journey right now? And I don't say journey the way my friend, the writer Bryn Tannehill does. She says that whenever trans people talk about journeys, you should have a drinking game where you take a shot every time somebody says the word journey. But how's your mental health journey? How is it going in terms of where you feel you're at right now?
Well, I mean, I think that's even funnier since your shirt is of the band Journey.
Not an accident.
I think I'm in a really, really good place right now. like better than I probably have been in 3 years, which is awesome. Even though Mercury's in retrograde, which has been, I don't usually believe in that stuff, but like it's been lining up recently, like the bad communication and stuff. Like, I don't know, but I feel like I'm in a really good place, which is awesome. Like, especially since like I'm about to go off to college and everything. Like, I'm very proud of myself, and I think a lot of that like has to do with having like Mac asked, like being able to figure out like who I am, like definitely helped with that, because I feel like that might have been a little bit of a roadblock for me, like in like recovery from my trauma and stuff, because a lot of that also, like, not to like go into too much detail, but had to do with queerness, and definitely complicated me being able to figure out who I was. So I think that being able to like live my truth has lifted a lot of barriers.
I like to
I
say
said,
that
go ahead, please.
Mercury
I was gonna
being
say, Maya, you're next.
retrograde.
Go ahead.
Okay, it's good to say that Mercury being in retrograde, and noting that is probably the most lesbian thing I've heard so far in this Zoom call. It's like so lesbian. Congratulations.
Maya, I was saying I was gonna come back to you. You tell everyone, share me a transphobia story. What's the worst or most transphobic thing you've had to deal with, either in your transition or in the last couple of weeks or months? What's the worst? And then follow it up with, what's the most affirming or joyful thing you've done or experienced? Give me a rose and a thorn thing.
Let me start with the thorn first. You know, I have always found it difficult. I will say, in defense of Orlando, Orlando is actually extremely liberal itself, but Deltona, basically, the further north you get, Lake Mary is a little further north, so you're going to find more problems. In Deltona, forget about it. Like, I would never be trans in Deltona. I actually have a friend who's a trans woman who runs Pride in Deltona. I don't know how she lives there, but in any case, I have just this past week, I know that I saw a posting from somebody I know who's a lesbian who's been quite generous with me in terms of like talking to me about being a parent and herself coming out later on in life and having had a husband and all this sort of things, you know. So I've connected with her on a deeper level. I saw her post on Facebook saying, I don't understand these non-binary identities, and they them is not grammatically correct, you know, all the same crap a lot of non-binary people have to come up with. And of course, what happens when somebody posts something like that, you know, in this case, they're ostensibly trying to show that I just want to, you know, somebody, you know, tell me about this. And it's instead of like being in a place of actually being open and learning, it actually is disparaging, but they're trying to pretend that they're open-minded about it. And then also it's always the starting gun and people are off to the races and transphobia in the comments. And that really I find very stressful. So when you see that from somebody you know and somebody you considered a friend and an ally, it's very much like being blindsided. And I know it colors my entire day. Like it really derails my entire day when I see things like that. I find it very hard to deal with. If I would, in terms of a rose, I think I'm going to go back to the previous question and talk a little bit about the rose, because one thing that Michelle mentioned and Naiyah also alluded to a little bit. I think one thing I learned in the pandemic is that I like myself and I can be alone, you know, and as somebody who has had challenges with that in the past, and especially kind of thrives on being around other people and talking to other people, having time to do basically intensive therapy for you know months at a time, where I just concentrated on me, even if it was over Zoom, actually helped me quite a lot. And I would say I'm in a much better place now post-pandemic than I was pre-pandemic, at least mentally. Not that I don't have my moments, as Dawn knows. She's the person I text when I'm feeling down. But
and I'm so lucky to be that person.
But yeah, I would say that overall, I'm in a much better place. And, you know, the prospect of coming to Houston this weekend was very daunting to me because I was going to meet my ex and her family. And well, there hasn't been a lot of, I would say, anything that was outwardly transphobic in that time. You know, relationships with your ex are always complicated, only complicated more when you're, the reason you got a divorce is because you came out as transgender, and all the rest. But I will say that the weekend has been overall very positive. So that's actually another rose in that regard, you know, and I got to spend time with my son. I just left him about an hour ago and wished him well at Texas A&M. And let's see what he does from this point forward. Encouraged him to be his own person and not make the mistakes I made, which was, you know, be scared of who you really are. So
Mazel tov. Maya shared with me the card she wrote to her son, and without it being invading her privacy, it was basically learn from my lesson. Do crazy things, stay up all night, you know,
yeah.
learn new experiences. I actually gave my kids the same lesson. I said, you're probably going to be offered pot. Try it. You know, if you're in a safe place, you may go out drinking. You might have sex with a stranger, but as long as you take precautions and learn that, you know, there are consequences, I want you to have whatever experiences you have. And their mother is probably, you know, spinning in her grave. Maya, my late wife. I will tell you that all three of my kids came out after her death because they saw my example of living truth, and they felt that they could be their truths because I did mine. So I think that's the greatest thing I've ever accomplished, is allowing my children to see what truth is like.
Yeah.
Let me ask Katy. Katy, what's your most transphobic story that you want to share? You don't have to share the worst one if you don't want to, but share one that you feel comfortable sharing, and tell us something that was affirming about being trans.
I think the most transphobic thing was probably my brother telling me he didn't want to see my transition and deleting me from Facebook. And the most amazing experience I have had was when my aunt flew out from DC to hold my hand before going into gender confirming surgery or vaginoplasty. And, you know, waking up and she was right there, and, you know, just, she's such an advocate for me and for trans people. She does similar work to what I do. She is a rape crisis counselor for the Navy in Annapolis, Maryland. So she works at Annapolis, the Naval Academy, and she's always posting on Facebook. And recently she posted about how she's there to support her trans and non-binary, you know, people and the people in her life. And, you know, I just sent her a text and just, you know, or a message on there. Just, I'll never forget how amazing I felt that you were there on the day that I really feel like I was reborn, which was July 12th. It'll be 3 years in July. And she's like, there was no other place I'd rather be. And so, you know, it just means so much because my own mother is not able to be there for me. She can be to an extent, but to another extent, completely not. And, you know, I love her so much. And, you know, yeah, I mean, that's just been amazing. So, yeah.
I hear you. 7 years ago today was the last day I saw my mother alive. I showed up at her door. She had disowned me in 2012 and wouldn't take my calls, even when I told her that my wife had cancer. Always went to the machine, but I decided I was in St. Pete, and I drove over to Hernando County, and I knocked on her door. She came to the door. Yes, can I help you? I'm like, it's me. Didn't recognize me. She did invite me in. We did have a conversation. I tried, and I tried, but there was no way forward. So she let me hug her goodbye, and she died a year and a half later. And that was the last time today, 7 years ago, that I saw her. So today was really the anniversary of her death in my head. I'm sorry that your mother doesn't see what a beautiful woman you are. Thank you, Katy, for sharing that. Mac, do you want to tell us your happy story and a story of transphobia that you've experienced? We certainly have read a lot about those.
I'll do the thorn first, just because we're on thorny subjects right now, and I'll end it with a positive note. I think probably the worst situation for me that happened was when I was in college, and there was this guy on the team that I didn't think I was gonna have an issue with. He ended up without words exchanging. It was more of us drilling, and then it turned into a kind of a mad drill. And he decided to want to injure my knee during one of the sessions that we were having, and continued to, after practice, address me as just a female and that I don't belong in men's sports. So yeah, and then I was like, "You said what now?" And I was like, "This is unacceptable. I shouldn't be treated this way. I deserve equal rights just as everybody else on this team. So I deserve to be here, and you do not need to be saying those things to me." Quickly addressed the situation, told my coach, and that was out of that. A positive thing that's ever happened to me, I recently just asked my sister, because I don't know if anybody has seen 911 of the Texas-based one in Austin. There's a trans man on there, and he talks about the situation with his sister and how him and his sister had like discrepancies because of the fact that he came out. And so I asked my sister, I was like, "Did you ever feel like I ever killed the version of myself that you wish you had?" And I thought that was a very important question to ask. And I was like, "Have you ever felt resentment of me because of that, or ever felt that way?" And she was like, "Because you're my sibling, no matter what, no matter when you came out, I had never lost a sister. I always felt that I did have a brother." And I was like, no. So that was
wow.
really happy.
Wow. Thank you. Michelle, it's your turn.
Yes, so the most transphobic thing that I've experienced was around the time, I think it was 2018, when there were a lot of the Black trans women being killed. I just took it upon myself to make a post on social media stating that I'm trans and my family loves me, and people around me love me. The negative comments that I received from that, and especially from people who I considered friends, that kind of it kind of blew my mind, because it's so, do you not respect who I am, who that I am? Or is it that you're not respecting the whole situation of the trans women dying? And I received a comment that said, "Maybe if you guys didn't dress like women and around here fooling men, y'all probably would live." And that hurt me so bad, because you just don't understand that when we transition, we're transitioning into our truth. And so I'm glad I know how to block people now. So when negative comments come up, that I know how to block people. So that was like the most transphobic thing that I've experienced. But the most liberating thing, I would say, is my mom. She's very religious. So for me to end up getting a partner and taking my partner to meet my mom, and she interacting with my partner, and then she started respecting me and identifying me as the pronouns that I've chose. And that was very liberating, and saying that, instead of her saying that she has a daughter and a son, she said, "Well, my two daughters now." So that's kind of very liberating to me, because she was someone who I never would have thought. She's a real Bible thumper. She can quote the Bible, but for her to accept me as being her daughter and using she, her pronouns, that was like the biggest affirming thing to me, that my transition isn't in vain.
Amen. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Naiyah, are you back with us? I know you had to take a little break.
Yes, I am back.
Would you tell us a story about transphobia you've experienced? And doesn't have to be the worst one, but if it's the worst one, you can share it if you want to. And then tell us something that made you happy, something that being a trans non-binary young woman made you feel affirmed and validated. And you there? Okay, good.
Well, I think I don't know if there's like a specific story that I feel would, I don't know. So I guess what I'll say is when I was in middle school, it was really like where I went to middle school, it was really commonplace to like say the T slur and like make fun of, especially of trans women, because it's always making fun of trans women, but also making fun of trans people in general and non-binary people, and just a lot of like, just like thinking that that made you cool, like hating trans people made you cool. And I think that that was definitely like, I mean, like, I feel like middle school is more formative. Like people say like your formative years referring to like being a toddler. I think middle school is way more formative. And so I feel like that definitely made it a lot harder for me to, you know, figure out like who I am. So that was kind of, especially since it was like over a long period of time. So that would be like the bad thing. But then I guess the thing I'll say of when I have felt very affirmed was when my best friend came out as non-binary. That also helped me to like find the language of like who I was. So I'm forever grateful to them. And they continue to like just support me in everything. And there was like, I think I spoke about this in our last conversation too, but there was one time where I had just come out to them, and then I was like talking about how I was planning on coming out at school and stuff. And then we had like a meeting for the social justice committee thing at our school that really didn't do anything. And it was like, you're supposed to introduce yourself with your pronouns. And I didn't. I just said, you know, she, her, reluctantly. And then they were like, what happened? You know, we're all gay, right? No one cares. And I was like, yeah. And just them like continuously supporting me to like, it doesn't matter like what other people think about you, like, because like, you know that I'm always gonna be there for you and like your family and everything. That really helped me to be able to like outwardly like live as who I am.
I will surprise Michelle and Katy with this, because the rest of the people here have all been interviewed by me. And I always ask this question at the end: is there anything that you wanted to say that I didn't ask you? So I'm gonna just skip that question for a second, so everyone knows that question's coming. The last question is, what didn't I ask? And the last thing before that I'm gonna say is, each of you have just met a new person who identifies as either trans and non-binary or just trans. I want you to say something to another person on the Zoom call, pick whoever you want, and tell them one positive thing about meeting them that you think will carry them through the day and make them happy and make them feel affirmed and validated. Say something nice to another person on this call based on what you've heard today to help them not become a statistic, not feel bad about themselves, to know that there's hope, because there is. I am living proof of it. So Maia, I'm gonna ask you first. Pick somebody on the call and tell them something positive about them that you have learned today.
Oh gosh, no pressure. Thanks.
What do you think? I picked you. I picked you on purpose.
Right. I would say Mac is bulletproof at this point. You've gone through more things that I think any of us, in the national press, and God bless you. Thank you so much for everything you've done to help, bring the cause of trans athletes to the fore. But I'm gonna reserve my words of encouragement, I think, to Naiyah. Naiyah, I am old, or older, I should say. But I wanted to let you know that I see you, that I see your identity is valid, that they, them is not a singular pronoun. It can be used, I mean, it is not, I'm sorry, a plural pronoun. It can be used in the singular. And, keep on keeping on, not the fact that you've had to drop out of high school, but going to college, that's a wonderful thing. And I think I encourage you to keep going in your life and know that not everybody over 25 or so thinks that, they, them isn't a valid identity. That, some of us understand and support you.
Thank you, Maia. That's great. Mac, do you want to go next? Pick anybody on the call.
Now I'm gonna say the same thing. You are doing great. I could tell just by just how you're talking, you seem more comfortable. And that's really, as you said, you were 16, right? Yeah. For you to figure that out at the age is very overwhelming, but also liberating at the same time. So I just want to commend you for that. You're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing and keep staying strong. And thank you, Maia. I really appreciate it.
Michelle, you get to pick anybody you want to say or pay a compliment to, or add a comment, anything you want, anyone you want.
Well, I would like to give a compliment to everyone in the group. I can't pick a certain person because I've learned so much from Katy, Maia, you, Dawn, from Naiyah, and Mac. So I just want to just say I'm just grateful to be here, and just hearing each person's story kind of helps you connect more with the person, and probably more with how they transitioned. I thank you, Mac, for all the activism that you do, and you as well, Dawn. And to Naiyah, just stay believing in yourself. Stay believing in yourself, because no one can tell you your truth but yourself. So just keep up the good work and good luck.
Thank you.
That's great. That's great. Naiyah, since you got picked so many times, why don't you pick somebody and pay them a compliment, anyone you want.
I also kind of want to just give a more general one, because it makes me really happy to see like older trans people. Well, not older, but people who are older than me.
Okay, thanks a
People who
lot.
are older than me.
Dang, I'm only 22. Come on now.
Hey, I just came out 8 years ago, so I'm like 16.
Oh, there you go. So we're the same age.
I identify as old. It's okay.
People who are older than me, like living authentically as themselves, like it gives me hope for myself and for like people who I know who aren't necessarily able to live their truths yet because of, other circumstances like family and, stuff that many of you touched on today. So it really makes me happy and hopeful to be able to see other trans people living truly as who they are and being able to be happy, because I really think that trans joy is revolutionary. So yeah.
Oh, there's a quote. You're a quote machine. I love it. Trans joy is revolutionary. I think it's gonna be the headline. Katy, I saved you for last on purpose. Pick a person, anyone you want to compliment or have a comment for, something positive.
I'm gonna give a positive to every single person. How about that? So first, Dawn, I'm gonna say I applaud you for the continued work that you do daily, because every time you show up, others get to see that we're here, we're queer, and we're fabulous. and they better fucking get used to it. And I want you to own that you're not old. That's bullshit. That's old thinking. I mean, you can say whatever you like, but I'm 49 years young. I am not old. And I don't think you're old either. You're older than your children, of course. Mac, I just want to say, applaud you for all that you've done and that you're going to continue to do, because I know that you're speaking your truth just by living your life, as we all are. We all don't know how we impact other people, but you doing it in the gym or through your sports touches a lot of different people that maybe I can't touch. Maia, I love that you live where you live and that you are just who you are. You know, we need people in all states, blue, red, purple, everywhere. So I just want to say thank you for what you're doing for our community. Let's see, Michelle. I have so much respect for you. I have respect for everybody, but I know the work that you're doing because I used to work at the LGBT Center, and I worked very closely with those that would attach or include those who are newly turning positive into bringing them into our community center. And you know, you as a Black identified trans woman, living where you live, I just applaud you. I did not say this. I'll be the first to tell you I'm a bit of a snob. I was born in Oklahoma. I don't tell people that generally. Part of it is because I was, I guess full disclosure, I was molested there. I do the work I do today because I am in recovery, and I love the father that I had, even though he molested me, but it was in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma is like a wicked red state, and it's a Bible Belt, and he was born again. And I don't need to go into much more detail, but I just know from where you live how tough it must be. And I hope that Dawn shares our contact information with each other. I would love to have your number. I'm here to support you in any way that I can. As a white privileged woman, I know my privilege, but I'm here to support you. And I don't know. I'm here to support you in any way that I can.
And a message for Naiyah? Do you have a message for Naiyah too?
I sure do. Of course I do. I'm saving the best for last. Well, we're all great. It's just that you're 16, and you know, we are where we're supposed to be is how I see it. But at 16, I didn't have the language that you now have. You know, I came out as gay at 17, not knowing that there was anything other than gay. That's all I could handle. I work with kids that are a lot like you, and you are going to be so impactful. You already are at 16. And I love that your parents are supportive. And I would ask you to give them a hug today, and you can tell them that this more mature, not older, trans woman asked that if it was okay for you to give them a hug today, because someone who didn't have what you have with affirming parents, they need to be applauded, that they love and respect you for who you are, and they want what's best for you. And just so glad that you're here, and you're not too far from Miss Dawn, because she can love and support you from afar, not even that far, but I'm here to support you too. I'm here to support all of you. And I'm forever grateful. You know, I'm really grateful. And I just hope that you know how special you are and that we all love and support you. So that's all I have to say, Miss Dawn.
What a great group. I'm gonna just ask one question I was asking before we started recording, and I forgot to write it down. Mac, some news came down today that the Department of Justice and the Biden administration is going to vigorously defend the right to discriminate at Christian universities and schools. And they want to make sure that their right to discriminate is protected. And the Biden administration Justice Department said, yes, we will make sure that that happens. Do you have any thoughts on that as someone who attends Life University?
My thoughts are on the fact of that is, I think that that's really a improper way to go in a direction where our country needs to go. And with going to a university, I hope that the numbers that we have with being a very inclusive college, that we can affect the other colleges around us and in our state to where things like that will not have to happen.
Let's hope not. Is there anyone who wants to add anything that I didn't ask or that you wanted to make sure the readers of this article know about? This is your chance. If there's anything I didn't give you a chance to talk about, please take the floor.
I have one thing just to say.
Go ahead, Katy.
This is obvious, but not so obvious. When you're asking or you're getting to know a trans person, it's not your business to ask what's between my legs. That should not be a topic of conversation. I have to say that's one of the biggest pet peeves I have. I write on my profile right away, I'm a trans woman. I don't go into saying I'm a post-op trans woman. I just say I'm a trans woman. And the very first thing that they want to ask me is about the body parts I have. And
You know what I
really,
say when I get that question? I say, well, before I answer, how is your pap smear? Or if it's a guy, I say, well, tell me about your prostate exam, because I really want to know how that went. And they always go, well, that's very personal. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Good one. Anybody else have anything to add? Anything that you thought we should talk about? Go ahead, Naiyah.
This doesn't necessarily have to go in the, well, I don't know. Anyway, I was just gonna say, I know earlier a couple of people brought up the term passing, and I hate that too. And something that I've been in, like, especially in terms of like cis passing privilege or whatever, I've heard recently a lot of people use cis assuming privilege, and I don't know, like, if that yeah, like, if you like that better, because I definitely do. Because it's not that like you necessarily pass as cis, it's that other people like perceive you that way, and that doesn't,
Huh. That's a new one. I haven't heard that
So
one.
they're using cis assuming instead of passing now?
I mean, you can do whatever you want, but like that's just
what people are
something
saying?
I usually use. Yeah.
Cis
I just want
assuming.
to get the lingo.
Cis assuming. Is that right, Naiyah?
Because then
Naiyah?
yes, because then that kind of it puts it more on like the way other people's biases of like what is a cis person, what is gender. It puts it more on the person passing that judgment as opposed to the way that you present, quote unquote.
Anybody have any thoughts on that one? That's interesting.
I like it. Cis assuming privilege, I guess, is the whole.
I missed the privilege part. All right.
Well, if you're talking about it in the sense of privilege, yeah, that'd be what it is. But it can just be like cis assuming in general without, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I often say I identify as a woman, and I happen to be, this is another phrase I picked up, a woman of trans experience, but I don't go around talking about, oral surgery I had once when I was 25. So why would I go around talking about other surgeries? It's not relevant. I did have a guy once ask me on a date. I said, well, I'm transgender. And he said, oh, transgender, what's that? I was like, oh boy. This is going to be interesting. Anybody else got anything? Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, I have one thing.
Good, Maia.
Biden administration, talking directly to you. You got to get off the words already. Don't just tell us that you have the backs of trans kids in this country. Actually do something about it. Put the power of the DOJ on this. You wield tremendous power as the executive of the country, as Donald Trump showed us. He did a whole lot, bad things, but he showed that there is a lot of power in the presidency, and he does have some latitude to do something here. Besides doing what you were just describing, Dawn, with the Department of Justice, I hadn't heard that yet. He's already said twice now. And I think he's gotten ratioed on Twitter when he's made those comments, basically from trans people saying, okay, that's nice. What are you actually going to do?
Words are nice, but actions are better, right?
Yeah. And one of the things I brought up is that, you know what, if you really want to do something, come down to the National Trans Visibility March in Orlando in October and tell us about the practical things you intend to do. Not just, we got your back. Great. I can feel you turning your back on us, actually,
Yes.
as you say it. So please actually do something, anything.
I have campaigned to become the first transgender reporter to interview a president. No president has ever spoken to a trans reporter one-on-one, and I'm pressing my case because that's what Dawn Ennis does. I'm persistent. If I get that opportunity, Maia, I will invite them on your behalf the first couple to the Trans Visibility March. I will say Maia Monet invites you. Because as your publicity manager, that is my job to get your name in all the newspapers.
You're going to need a photographer, I assume.
Yeah, maybe you could be there for that. Anybody else have any thoughts about the Biden administration before we go? Because I mean, first president talk about transgender people was Obama, but Biden also was the first one to talk about it's the civil rights movement of our time when he was vice president. He signed executive orders on day one.
Hey, Dawn.
Yes, go ahead.
I put my number in the chat. I have to go, but I love you all.
Okay, Katie.
Feel free to reach out to me, anybody, okay? Thanks so much.
Everybody look
including
at the number. It's there before I
Okay.
close this up.
Bye.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you very much, Katie. Bye-bye. I'm sorry I went 90 minutes. Anybody got any thoughts on the Biden administration besides Maia before I go?
Well, I do have something to add.
Go ahead, Michelle. Go
Oh,
ahead, Michelle.
So, Kayla probably could tell you more about this, but there are some
I just got
laws
an email
in-
from her, yeah.
Yeah, there are some laws in Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi to where that providers can now start denying trans individuals health care. And that is something that I don't think that that's even should be allowed. Because if you are a person who is a doctor who specializes in trans individual and trans health, you shouldn't be penalized for that, to being able to help someone. So it's just a lot of anti-trans laws going on, especially in the House of Tennessee and in Mississippi. So I really want people to understand that.
Yeah,
What they're not
Frank, what do you wanna
recognizing
say?
what they're not recognizing is the fact that we are human and we are people and we are being denied affirming care from doctors. That is like the whole thing, and it's messed up.
That's unconstitutional.
Tragic. It is unconstitutional, and with the fact that like the Biden administration isn't growing a pair in order to address necessities and needs that are by the people of the country is like appalling.
Yeah, I mean, I expect this shit from the Trump administration. I don't expect it from Biden. Just the opposite.
I mean, I kind of want to second what everyone has been saying, and especially Maia, because like just do it. Like, we get it. We understand that you say you support trans people and that you say you support trans youth, but so then do something about it. Like, you're the president. Like, these states that have introduced anti-trans legislation, there needs to be some type of repercussions because a lot of them are unconstitutional and a lot of them go against federal law, which, like, you know, if a school that receives federal funding goes against something like Title IX, then they can receive penalty for that. So then states should be receiving penalties for that. Like, he needs to put his foot down. And also something that kind of got me mad, I guess, during the I don't know if they call it the State of the Union the first year, but
No, it's just addressed to Congress.
yeah, that when he made the comment about how he supports trans, I don't know if it was youth or people. Okay.
Youth, he said that, well,
Youth.
he was telling trans people, I've got your back, yeah.
Yeah, so another way you can show that is like, I need Kamala to kind of address her past as a prosecutor as well, because she put many trans women in men's prisons and denied some trans prisoners healthcare. So until that's addressed, I don't know how much I can trust the Biden administration when it comes to trans issues.
I know she addressed it on the campaign trail, but it's still a very sore point for a lot of people. Anybody else? Folks, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm sorry Katie had to go, but I appreciate you all sticking around a couple extra minutes. And happy
you,
Pride.
Dawn.
And Maia, I'll be thinking of you on Pulse Day.
Thank you, everyone. And I hope to see some of you down in Orlando this year. If you can
When
Tell us
make
the
is
date.
that?
What
When
are the
is that,
dates?
by the way?
When are the dates?
circle the date, October 9th.
October
And
9th.
It's actually, that's the actual March. The whole week though, starting from October 4th or 5th, there's going to be panels and stuff. hoping to get some big names down here. And if you come in a little extra early, you can go on vacation with Dawn for the
I'm going to
50th
be there
anniversary.
September 30th through October 3rd. But
Yeah.
Maya, I'm going to work it out. I'm going to come down for the march. I'll be there for the day at least.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that is the 50th
Come on,
anniversary
how
of
could I
Disney
miss
World.
it? Biden will be
Well,
there. How could I miss it?
This is what I've been saying, but you kept telling me you weren't coming. But
Wait, is
Well, I was
Biden
gonna
really
surprise you,
coming?
but
Is he
now-
really coming?
no.
No,
This is what
that's
this
that's
is what
mean.
we want. That's our pie in the sky wish. But I'm sure we'll have quite a few speakers. Whatever the focus of the march will actually be on violence and against Black trans women in particular.
That's
I'm
fantastic.
I'm gonna try to make it down there, but I'm in Georgia. Like,
Okay.
wow, we're that close.
Yeah, you're pretty close. October
Send
9th,
a-
circle.
Maya, send Mike a link to the site, and I think you have his email. It's in the list.
Okay.
Thanks,
I will
everybody.
send it around. Sure.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Happy
Bye,
Pride.
everyone.
Thank you.